Welcome to the Huff-N-Stuff podcast, where we talk about board games, card games, and anything in the tabletop hobby. We're so glad you joined us, because we have loads of great stuff from our contributors like Perception Check. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our show. And here we go!
Report in.
Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by. Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
This is episode 13, May 18th. We are going to talk today about Fantasy Flight's X-Wings miniatures. And we're also going to talk about the word of the day, off topics. We're also going to have a segment from the Game Detectives, Perception Check, and all those things that you've come to expect from Huff-N-Stuff podcast. Welcome. How you doing there, Steven?
I'm doing wonderful, Rob. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. So today, before we get all into this, recently we've been talking about how we're getting ready for the Comic-Con in Phoenix.
I am so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I think what I've been hearing recently is that the Phoenix Comic-Con is, I believe, the 6th largest in the country now. It's
really?
Yeah, it's growing. And that's, I think, what is really fun about it. Because you've got all these people coming from out of town. You've got these famous people. If you've seen the list online, if those of you have not seen their website, it's a pretty good website online. And it shows all of the stars that are coming. Some of the stars that are coming, it just kind of blew me away.
Yeah, I know they've got a great list of guests this year. And it's going to be my first ever Comic-Con. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's going to be one of my first here. When we lived in California, I'm a native of Southern California. We would go down, I think 3, maybe 4 times down to the San Diego Comic-Con. Now that's a complete nightmare. It's like going to LA in one of their malls there for Christmas. You can't hardly walk. It's just so many people there. I believe they were one of the first Comic-Cons in the entire nation. I don't know if that's true, but I think that they were one of the.
Yeah, I have no idea.
In any case, I think you and I would agree. I think there's a lot of people like us that are really excited that it's coming.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to take one day, I'm going to go out and see all of the main exhibit hall. Because I haven't been to one of these in so long that I'm just curious about what they're going to have there.
I am going to have at least one day just to be roaming around because, yes, having never been to a con before, I want to make it memorable and I want to be able to see as much as possible. I know there are a few stars that are coming. One in particular that I'm even going to try and get an autograph for. I'm not sure if I'm going to fork out the money for a picture, but I guess I might for my first con. It might be worth the memory there. The actor in particular is Richard Dean Anderson, MacGyver, or Colonel Jack O'Neill from Stargate SG-1. That's one of my favorite shows is Stargate. So
right, like I said, I have to say that this Comic-Con I'm really excited about, and one of the things that I'm particularly excited about is the gaming part, which is in the Hyatt, I believe. The Hyatt Regency. Yeah. And I bought tickets for it this year just because I wasn't sure exactly. I've had conflicting reports on what to expect and where it's, if you even have to have it. I mean, there's some people that have told me that you don't even need tickets to even go to the gaming part. I don't want to take that chance.
No, so. I wouldn't take that chance. But I was just told that it's possible there's so many people that are planned for coming to this con, and there are so many people that have signed up to host gaming this year that they could almost make it its own board game convention.
I wish they would.
Thing. Yeah.
Because honestly, I think that Phoenix, in my opinion, is being underrepresented. Now, if you look at some of the figures, I'm sure, with how much people purchase as far as board games and attending these type of events, I'm sure we're not up to the standards of Gen Con maybe, but it would be really nice to have one in the West. I don't care if it's at Las Vegas or it's in LA. Dude, somebody make this happen.
Yes.
We need a
yes,
West.
please.
Yeah, we need one that's on on the West Coast, because there's one in Columbus, Ohio, which is called Origins.
Yep.
Right, and then there's one in BGG, which is probably the closest one out of all the major ones. BGG.com, they have their own con.
Where's that?
It's in Dallas.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fairly close.
I was going to go this year to that BGG, but with the money and all that, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, my daughter's 16th birthday came around, and some of the funds were, I think, gone by the time that rolls around.
Yeah, traveling's a bit difficult for me, so I've never even really attempted traveling to a con. My first ever convention of any kind was definitely not a Comic-Con. I had a professionally based convention, more or less, but
through work.
Set up. It was for what I wanted to do with my graduate degree. So
right.
It was an interesting convention to go to, and it's set up similar with all the exhibitions all the panels and things like that.
Right.
But obviously they're professional panels versus panels that you can have a lot of fun with.
Right. And I do know that there was supposed to be a gaming con called MaricopaCon. But I've tried to contact that guy, and he has not responded back to me, and it makes me wonder if they're actually going through with that still.
I backed it on Kickstarter, I have to admit, and to get some passes to it, and they still have updates going on.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming that it's still on.
What sort of makes me wonder is because I've not heard anything from this guy. I've tried to get a hold of him and possibly have him on the podcast, and just nothing. So it just kind of makes me wonder. I'm sure he's a stand-up guy. Their website is kind of not great, and it makes me, I know he's trying to run this on a shoestring budget, but, it seems like things need to be a little bit better press-wise, marketing-wise, needs to be a little bit better. But.
Yeah. I know they're obviously pressed for budgets, having to do a Kickstarter to raise funds, and they kind of barely scraped by making the Kickstarter funds.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we'll see what happens.
How many guns do you think, Gold 5?
Say about 20 guns. Some on the surface, some on the towers.
Red Leader, this is Gold Leader.
I copy, Gold Leader.
We're starting for the target shaft now. We're in position.
Hey guys, now it's time to talk about what we've been playing recently.
That's right, Elise. Now we're going to talk about what we've been playing. And, as usual, I'm going to put the ball into your court there, buddy, and let you talk about what you've been playing recently.
Okay. Well, a couple of the games I've been playing have been leading up here, so we'll talk about those later. But there are a couple that I just played. A game of Trajan, is, I believe how it's pronounced, is kind of a Roman-themed... It's difficult to describe exactly what this is. It's got some aspects of worker placement, in a sense.
Right.
One of the main mechanics that determines what action you take each round is, you've heard of the game Mancala, or it's a overarching term for a bunch of African or West Asian games. Kala is a board with all the cups, and you pick up the beans, and however many beans, and you're dropping one in each. Okay. It's kind of got that cup, that movement. It's just a space on your player board that you're moving them around, but you're moving little cubes through that circular zone, and where you land determines what your action is that turn. So it's an interesting mechanic. I had a good time. I actually won, I believe. Yeah, and it's one of these games where your goal is to get as many points as you possibly can, however you want to get those points. And there's plenty of ways to do it. So it just worked out. I got to a really early lead and just managed to keep the lead the whole time. So I think I got lucky.
Trajan is one of these that definitely I'm kind of curious about. And there's been mixed reviews on this game. And I believe that this came out in 2011 or 2012. I don't even think it's anything too recent. I could be completely wrong on this one. I've stayed away from it only because it looked really, I don't want to say a pace it on theme, but it really didn't seem like the theme was very strong.
Yeah, the Roman theme doesn't really... It does feel sort of... The Roman skin is kind of pasted to it. I don't think it makes a difference thinking that I'm doing this as a Roman
Senator.
consul or senator or something along that lines. I didn't really feel it. I just felt like I was going for the points. There is part of the map that's like a map of Europe that you can put soldiers into the army and expand and get points through the different territories. So there is that, but other than that, it's not really much. There's nothing that it really puts forth that says, hey, this is Roman.
One of the games that I've been playing recently has been Mice and Mystics. And I've been hearing a lot of talk from a lot of gamers on various podcasts, and they're just like, this is one of the greatest games. And, my wife initially wanted to buy this game because it had a great little theme. I don't know have you ever read the book Redwall?
I have not.
Redwall came out, I believe, in the 80s. It was a children's book, and it was pretty thick, although I would even argue some of the themes involved wasn't necessarily childlike, but basically they're little mice and little creatures of the earth, little rodents and stuff, and they have these adventures. Mice and Mystic, it's the same kind of theme, although they're a little different in that the mice used to be human beings.
Yes.
So, and then they were put a spell on them, and then they have to go and discover what the evil queen's plans are, and this kind of deal. It is a pretty good game. It's a dungeon crawl.
Yep.
I don't know if we've talked about this before.
I've played with you at least once.
Okay.
At least once we've played.
Okay. It's a good game. It's another one of these dungeon crawls, but I really believe that the game doesn't have a lot of depth. It's almost pure story. I mean, if you were to lose that chapter, because each of the scenarios are broken up into chapters, if you lose that chapter, it is almost inconsequential to the story.
Okay.
And I know people would probably argue with me on this point. They say, in the rule book, it'll say, get from point A to point B. And by the way, once you get to certain parts of the tiles, because they got these gigantic tiles, they're almost 8.5 by 11 tiles.
Yeah.
They're these hard cardboard tiles. And when you get to the next tile, you're moving through these tiles, that you will have to read a bit of the story. And a lot of people don't read the story, but you kind of have to.
Yeah.
To make that game work, you have to read the story segments that are in between each of these and the little dialogue between the mice. It's a very cute game. And I would say that unless you're playing it with children that are around the age of 10 or so, big kids could play it too. I don't mean to be saying anything bad about it, because it's not a bad game at all. It's just not something I want to play all the time. However, I've been playing it recently, kind of solo. My wife will jump in every now and then when she sees I'm playing and she has some time. She'll jump in, and I want to see what happens at the end. Graphics, artwork, amazing. Whoever did the artwork on this is
it is
amazing.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all the pieces are awesome. Really thick, solid pieces on all the cardboard. I mean, Plaid Hat Games, which made the game, always does a good job in their stuff.
The figures are pretty nice too.
They're awesome.
And you can paint the figures and make them look really nice. And you went through the trouble of, didn't you make the little cheese pieces out of clay and stuff like that? So, taking that extra effort adds a little more flavor to the game.
Yeah, I wanted to pimp it out a little bit. My brother keeps urging me to paint them because he says, you're a really good painter, you should paint those figures. But the problem is that if you don't do it right, if you don't paint them just so nice, it detracts. And I think that is something that worries me. If I'm going to paint them, I want it to be done in a professional manner so they look really good.
Yep.
Now, what's another game you've been playing?
Played a game, The Dwarf King.
Okay.
I forget when we played it, but anyhow, it's an interesting trick-taking game. And
it's a card game.
It's a card game, yeah. There's only 3 suits, and the suits are representative of dwarves, goblins, and humans, I think.
Okay.
And it's red, green, blue. As it goes around, you're laying out the cards. It's kind of like they were describing it like Hearts, and it's been a long time since that I've played Hearts.
Yeah.
So I don't remember exactly how all of this works. So I might as well be newbie. So there were 3 of us, and whoever played the highest suit that matched whatever suit they started with got the trick. And there are tiles that come out, and depending on who has each of the different colored 5s, they have different effects on the game. So one person, I don't remember which 5, gets to decide when this tile flips, for this round, this is the only way you gain points, for example.
Okay.
So, maybe you get a hand that allows you to gain points, and maybe you get a hand that's really not helpful. And, I didn't do very well. I came in last on that.
Well, you're new to the game, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't be expected to do, awesome at it if you don't know how to do it. So... that's understandable. The other game, I've been playing Olympus last night. I was a little tired, so I didn't get a full enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
Although whenever my wife says, you want to go play a board game? I'm like, I don't refuse that. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Now, the one thing I have to say, I've been sort of noticing, this is like the third or fourth game I played of it, maybe the fifth. I've been noticing there's one flaw in this game, and one of the flaws is you have tracks, and each player board has a track that you can invest your points in, that when you are building up your different things like food and once you get to the end of the line, let's say there's 10 spots you can build up to, let's say you're going to build up your crops and you want to do wheat. So when you get to that 10th spot, then you get a victory point, and then you capture a special bonus points for maxing out that particular thing. I think there's about 6 or 7 of these things that you can put your points into. Action points or whatever you call it. I'm not explaining this very well, but the point is that once you get 4 of those tracks maxed out, the game's over. So the cool thing about this game is actually being able to build, because you have a set of cards out and you can build cards, and for each card you build, let's say you want to build a library, or you want to build roads from one city-state to the other, because it's a Greek game. That's kind of fun, being able to get the types of materials needed to make these buildings. Like you can build in military, although military doesn't really help you too much. So my point is that once you get those 4, it's over, and no matter if you've done any kind of building or not, the game's over. And so I saw that my wife is really good at building things with the cards and getting the resources to spend to get those buildings. So I said, I know. What I'll do is I'll get some points, and then I'll race to the end of the line and get those 4 victory cards and end the game before she can build too much and get too many points in victory. And when I slammed that 4th one down, she was like, oh, that kind of sucks, because I really wanted to build things and explore the game in that regard. And that's where the problem is with the game, I believe. Olympus, because of that fact that you have 4th, and I know what they're trying to do, they're trying to make the game short. They're not trying to make it drag on forever. I get that. But when you do that in the game, when you end it with that 4th one and you've not explored enough building, you're losing out on the game. That's like saying if you're in Agricola or a game like it and you're building things and someone ends the game through some function of their own, bam, it's over. It makes you miss out on some of the game. Some of the fun of the game.
I think I understand.
Like if we were going to play Stone Age. And you played it a couple times before, I'm sure. And before you got to build any of those special tiles at the bottom of the board, I ended it with some type of function. It would make the game not as fun because you could, you know what I'm saying? So we made a house rule that you couldn't end the game with those 4. You had to end it with all of them. So it makes it that much trickier to do that. So you had the chance to build things with. Anyways, with that said, it's still a good game. We still enjoy it. But it definitely has its flaws. So that's what we've been playing.
This is Gold Leader. We're starting our attack run.
I copy, Gold Leader. Move into position.
No good, I can't maneuver.
Stay on target.
We're too close.
Stay on target.
Hey now! We got something new and exciting for you guys! Yo! Video games are off the hook! So why don't we talk about that with our newest team, the Game Detectives, with Jason and Steven. Okay, take it away, guys!
Video Game Detectives.
On this episode of the Video Game Detectives, we're going to be talking about E3 coming up on Monday. It will be kicking off. E3 is a video game smorgasbord, technology, all-encompassing, all this thing.
The Comic-Con of video games.
Yes,
basically.
Exactly. There you go. Thank you.
They have everything for all platforms, Game Boy Advance, Xbox One, you name it.
I'm going to go ahead and say that Game Boy Advance is outdated tech, but that's okay. Thanks for bringing back the memory.
They're still represented, I believe?
I don't know. I am going to go ahead and say they're not. we're kind of going to wing it. We looked up the list of top 10 games that they're going to be reviewing at E3, or at least the ones that they know about. There could be some surprises. List goes as follows: Crackdown 2, Assassin's Creed Unity, Far Cry 4, Shadow of Mordor, Watch Dogs, Mario Kart 8, Wolfenstein: The New Order, Dark Souls 2, Super Smash Bros. Wii U, Murdered, Soul Suspect, The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, Destiny, Wildstar, and my favorite, Mortal Kombat X.
X marks the spot.
X marks the spot. But it's pronounced EX, as in X.
Oh, I get it. Like ex-girlfriend?
Oh, good. Yes, very good. It will be the game that you pick up when you break up with your girlfriend because she can't handle how awesome you are.
At gaming, basically.
At gaming.
Yes.
At gaming. Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So, anyway, let's... we don't have time to talk about all of these games, but there are a few shining stars in here. Steven, you're a big Assassin's Creed fan. What do you think of the new Assassin's Creed Unity? Obviously, they haven't launched anything yet. There's just a bunch of speculation and a few screenshots, stills, things like that. What do you think?
I think they have a trailer online. I've seen it online in trailer for it. It looks pretty good. I was a huge fan of Black Flag and the other games that they have for Assassin's Creed, the whole campaign or the catalog or whatever you want to call it. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I love the games. I like it's like the new Hitman, basically. When Hitman came out back in the, I mean, you could do whatever you want, go wherever you want, do all the side missions. Open world sandbox, and it looks amazing. And you're always fighting for justice.
Always
until
fighting for justice.
Yeah, and that's always fun to pretend
in the future and the past.
Yeah, but I don't really play the multiplayer for Assassin's Creed, but I hear it's really good. I just only stick to the campaign.
What is the first one that had the multiplayer? Because I don't think I've actually played one that has the multiplayer. I stopped playing after 2, though. So I mean,
I think Brotherhood was the first one that had the multiplayer, but don't quote me on it. But I think the one after number 2, I think it was Assassin's Creed. No, Revelations was the third one.
Right.
So Brotherhood was the one where you got to recruit more assassins as you played. I think that was the first one with multiplayer. And Brotherhood was actually one of the hardest ones that they had because there's a bunch of flying missions where they're like impossible. Anyway, but Unity, Assassin's Creed Unity, it looks amazing. I can't tell what time period it is based on the trailers, so I'm looking forward to what they announce at E3 on Monday. Just to get a glimpse into what they're doing, but the one that's currently out had a really good ending on it. I won't spoil for anybody, but it was really good. So I can't wait to see where the next one starts off.
Storyline's going to go. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I know that Shadow of Mordor. There's a lot of talk about that one having a similar playability as Assassin's Creed. I've only seen a trailer. It looked pretty cool. I like Lord of the Rings. I like the world that J.R. Tolkien put together. A lot of people do. And I think that's going to be wildly successful. They're taking a lot of heat for basically just ripping off Assassin's Creed and putting it into Middle Earth, a Middle Earth world setting. But I don't really mind that. That's not a big deal for me. And the storyline looks pretty cool. So I think I'm going to be picking that up versus Assassin's Creed. So.
If that Mordor game is anything like the other Lord of the Rings games, then I'm a huge fan because the other Lord of the Rings games were amazing. They're one of the top best adaptation games from movie to a video game I've ever played. So I'm looking forward to hacking and slashing my way through all those zombie type things he brings back to life. Because in the trailer, he kills people and then brings them back to life.
That's what it looks like.
And then he built his whole army, and it looks amazing.
It looks pretty cool. I think that the graphics are obviously top notch. It's going to be released on. I think that one's actually going to get a full release on everything from PC to Xbox 360,
all the platforms,
PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, obviously. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that one too. So Shadow of Mordor going to be on the list. Assassin's Creed maybe on the back burner for me, but it looks like you're going to pick up both of them.
Yep, I'll probably get both.
Yeah. Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs is a hot hot game right now. That's actually out.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen trailers. I've read up a little bit about it. It's rated M for mature, so it's got like a little bit darker content. It's
a little bit more violent than a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that the storyline itself, it lends itself to mature audiences only. No children. It's something to do with the sex trade.
Yeah,
and then there's going to be a lot of espionage type. It basically looks like Jason Bourne meets Taken.
Yes,
and that's what I like that mixture, and the characters look really cool. There's a lot of good voice acting going on. They've got a lot of cameos by famous people. So it looks good to me. The storyline looks good. Everything I've read about it is very good. Yeah. I have heard that's actually another Ubisoft release. Assassin's Creed and Far Cry 4 are Ubisoft. I think Far Cry's Ubisoft. But Watch Dogs was an Ubisoft release, and I guess they're taking some. I was reading on the E3 website. They're taking some heat for. Basically, Ubisoft is making these games in conjunction with NVIDIA, and the AMD processor doesn't process as well as an NVIDIA processor, but an AMD processor supposedly is better. So AMD's trying
to
give
me on that one, brother.
They're trying to give them. Well, okay. Well, anyway, that's what I heard. That's what I read on the website. That's what I've done some research on it. But you can care less. I don't care. Just give me.
Yeah, I mean the Watchdog, from what I've seen, looks amazing. It looks like a lot of gameplay, a lot of hours. It looks like it's got but it looks like it has zero replay value. So after you beat it, I don't know where you're going to go from there. Yeah, I mean it seems like it's a long game. It'd be challenging to beat, but I think after you beat it, I don't know where you would go from that. Right to the resell pile, I guess.
Yeah.
But and that's fine with me as long as I get my $70 worth. I don't care.
$70.
Yeah, because it'll probably take me 2 months to beat it, probably. Cause
that's enough for me.
Yeah, because I have enough to do as it is.
Yeah.
But Watch Dogs looks like a great game. I look forward to playing it and or borrowing your copy of it. So
I will. Yeah, I'll probably be getting that one very soon to check that out. The rest of these, I'm not really into. The only ones that have caught my eye are obviously Destiny. Destiny is going to be made by the same people who brought us the Halo games. It looks very much like Halo, so I'm not quite sure what to expect. A lot of people are excited about it and they're super pumped, and there's a lot of Halo has a lot of pomp and circumstances surrounding it because of what it is and what it did to gaming, and people have been waiting for a Halo killer, but you can't really kill Halo if it's the same game or if it's made by similar
same guys.
I can't say that. I mean, but I think that it doesn't look like they did too much deviating from at least with the weapons that I saw. Well, they're going to add some new elements and things like that look pretty cool, but I don't know how it's going to work out as far as a online multi. It looks like it's an MMORPG basically, based in a futuristic setting.
It looks like the same world as Halo. It looks like it could exist in the same timeline as Halo, either in the past or the future. Yeah, so I don't think the only thing that kills Halo is Halo. So I don't see this. I mean,
technically, that's exactly what this is. It's a giant ball of.
I just see this filling the void until the next Halo comes out.
I agree, because I know that they're going to be talking about that at E3. That there's not really much released on that other than a freaking poster.
Yep.
So I am going to be checking that out. It does look. Somebody pointed out to me that it looks like the. There's a Master Chief above water, and there's a Master Chief reflection in the water. The one in the water looks like the Master Chief we all know and love, and it looks a little bit beat up and weather worn. And the one on top looks like a new suit. So I don't know if it's a new suit or if it's a new character. Well, somebody said that it actually looks like it might be female armor. It might be a girl. Well, so
at the end of the last one, I beat the last one. The Master Chief gets
spoiler alert.
Oh well, I hope everyone's played it. I mean, dang, that's like 5 years ago. But Master Chief at the end, Cortana's gone, and he gets his armor taken off, and you see his nose up to his eyebrows. But he must get new armor because they decommissioned him basically at the end of that one.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'd be cool to see a female Spartan.
Yeah, I know they exist. I think it would be pretty cool to see. So either way it goes, or no matter the storyline, obviously it's going to be a continuation, and I'm going to look forward to that. And I'll probably pick that up over at Destiny if that ends up happening.
I'll be renting it. It'll be a rental for me. Gamefly, here it comes.
Gamefly. Shameless plug.
Gamefly, we'll pick us up. We'll sponsor us, Gamefly.
I hear a lot of talk about WildStar. That looks like a watered down WoW. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. I've seen some gameplay. I signed up for the beta, but I didn't end up doing too much playing it.
Is that a PC game?
It did. Yeah, it's a PC game. Didn't interest me too much, so I wasn't too much of a fan. It's basically just like instead of a magical world, it's like a tech world, and it's kind of like it was not my bag. The game, the crown jewel for me is the Mortal Kombat X. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan. Been a Mortal Kombat fan since the first inception. I sat around my room hiding from my parents playing it on the Super Nintendo that had no blood. Had no blood. My friends are all on Sega Genesis playing it with the blood code, Abacab. And I tried so hard to try to get, figure some way to get a blood code going on a Super Nintendo. Turns out it doesn't exist. And, I played that all the way through. So I played every single one except for 4. I went to an arcade, saw somebody playing it. Polygons rendered horribly, sucked. No thank you, I'm out. I'm not going to waste my quarters. And then I waited till the next one came out, 5, and then I was like, all right, yeah, I'll give it a chance. Next generation consoles for the time on those wired controllers. No thank you. Can't move around.
Wired controllers.
But the new Mortal Kombat X looks spectacular. If the trailer that's out right now, prior to E3, is any indication of the actual gameplay, I'm going to be blown away. If that's at all what a match looks like, that's kind of how they're presenting it. Match between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, 2 classic characters. It's insane. Insane. I'm super pumped for it. I'm a huge fan. Ed Boon came out, and apparently this is the 10th version of Mortal Kombat, and so it's Mortal Kombat X, the letter X. Some people think it's a Roman numeral. He came out and clarified and said that it's EX. But they're trying to edge it up or whatever. That's what I'm looking forward to. So hopefully E3 is a huge success, and these games are going to be everything that we hope they are and more. So
yeah, we didn't mention the hardware aspect of it. I think Xbox One's going to be.
Oh, that's right. The controllers are actually now going to work on PC, which makes sense because they're Bluetooth. So if you've got a Bluetooth,
it's going to be amazing.
And you've got the update for Windows 8.1, I think it is. Then supposedly your Xbox controller will work for games on your PC. So
they'll be demoing at E3. So
that will be interesting to see how that works out. I'm really super excited. So. Yeah, that's all we've got for you today. Hopefully E3 goes well, and maybe there's some other games that get announced that we're not aware of.
Yep. I won't be. I will not be watching E3 live. I'm not one of those guys that does that.
I am not either.
I catch the highlights like a normal person. Not say you're not normal if you watch it live. I just don't have that kind of time. I will be at work on Monday because it is a Monday, But I will catch the highlights for show Tuesday morning.
Well, it's going to go through the 12th, so it's like a whole week.
Yeah, so, the first day was pop
first
out
day,
something hot, and
people,
the next day they bring something not as hot, and then the last day they make it extra hot.
Yeah, sizzle reel. Get the sizzle reel out there.
They got to make it hot. Then make it extra hot. Then take it to the next level, and Eric is better.
So anyway, hope you enjoyed our breakdown of E3, our shoot from the hip attitude about E3, because we're not going to watch it. We just like the games, some of the games that are going to be exhibitioned there, I guess.
Yep. This is Steven, like last time, and
just Steven.
No,
and Jason. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Take it easy.
Hi, you've been listening to the Huff-N-Stuff podcast.
Are you alright? I got a little cooked, but I'm okay.
Squad leaders, we've picked up a new group of signals. Enemy fighters coming your way.
My scope's negative. I don't see anything. Pick up your visuals, counting.
Here they come.
We present our newest magical contributor, Perception Check, where Eric and Ken talk about the world of RPG. Yep, that's right, RPGs. Now here they are.
Hello, I'm Ken.
This is Eric.
And we are Perception Check. Today we are going to be talking about some of our favorite stories from our times in role-playing games. I'll go first. Now, the first thing that I wanted to bring up is actually a resolution to a conflict that I had. I had one player that would constantly speak out of turn and speak out of line. And as an attempt to stop him, one day he's in a dungeon and he finds a ring. Being the obnoxious thief that he was, he wouldn't even wait to get an item appraised. He would just put the ring on immediately. And he just sees this cheek-to-cheek grin on my face as he puts the ring on, and he tries to talk in character, and I'm like, you try to talk, but nothing happens.
Uh-oh.
And it just kept going from there. He'd try to talk, and nobody understood him. So they finally get back to town, take the ring to an appraiser, and the appraiser just looks at them and smiles and says, "This ring is a cursed ring of iambic pentameter."
What?
Now, for those of you who don't know, iambic pentameter is actually kind of it's almost like a poetic meter that is used most popularly by William Shakespeare in his writing.
Oh, yeah.
So the only way that this guy's character could talk was if he spoke in iambic pentameter.
That's
the
worst.
it got to the point where he got really, really good at it. But it was funny because even outside of the game, if he saw me, he would start speaking in iambic pentameter.
Did he know what it was, or did he have to look it
up?
He
looked it up and came back the following week and was just spot on with all of it. And there was just one time he was trying to woo this girl, and I just see him doing this, so I stand off in the shadows. He can see me, but the girl in front of him can't see me. So he's sitting there and he's talking, and I can hear him, and I just start counting on my fingers, and all of a sudden you just hear him scream some obscenity at me and run away.
So did he just steal stuff from Shakespeare, or did
at
he make
first,
his own stuff
but then he just eventually got so good at it, he started making up his own stuff. And eventually, he had some certain catchphrases and lines that he would just repeat over and over and over again for certain situations, but there was some stuff he would just make up on the fly.
That's pretty great. He never got the...
Oh, he eventually got sick of it and just decided to hack his hand off.
That's a cure-all.
He couldn't get the ring off. I wouldn't let him take it off. And then finally one day he's like, "Fine, I'll stop talking out of character." I said, "Okay, here's how you take the ring off." He's like, "Okay." And I said, "Cut off your hand." He's just, "Fine." Like, "No, I wasn't serious." He's like, "What?"
Well, I think I mentioned it a few times. I mentioned it in one of the previous podcasts. We talked about GURPS, the generic universal role-playing system, I believe.
Yeah, you've mentioned it. I've never had a chance to play it.
So basically, it's generic. You can plug and play any sort of theme on there you want. This game was called Bunnies and Burrows. It's from the 70s, and I think actually it holds the distinction of being one of the first non-human role-playing games that you could play. Because, of course, it was D&D, and you always played... you played elves and stuff, but it's one of the first creature RPGs.
Yeah.
Where you're playing bunnies. And Watership Down, if you've ever seen Watership Down, you're all the same elements. So you got the Warren Watchers, who are basically your fighters. You have Seers, which are basically like Fiverr from Watership Down, if you've seen it. You have visions of the future, things like that. It's a great RPG. GURPS is a great system. It's basically, unlike D&D, instead of rolling D20s, you roll 3 6-sided die, and you have a certain skill level, say it's 10, you're trying to get under that to do a skill. You want to pick a lock, you roll 3 dice, your lock picking skill is 10, you got to get under 10 to do it.
Oh, that's
if you roll a 3 or 4, it's a crit, kind of like rolling a 20 on a d20. If you roll 18, basically that's going to be an automatic fail. It's like a crit fail. No matter what happened, the worst possible outcome occurred. So anyways, we're role-playing bunnies. By the way, bunnies can only count to 4. I don't know if you knew that. Scientific fact. Anything over 4 is just a lot. So if you see a bunch of enemies, you ask how many. The GM will go, a lot. Or lots and lots. There's a lot. Anyways, so we're role-playing bunnies. The adventure took us through this science lab. Basically, we're trying to free captive bunnies. Escaping from there, we went to a farm. So basically, this farm... picture of it like a work shed, lots of work tools. We're going in there because one of our seer basically had a vision that there was a bunny in there at one point. So we go in and look. The minute we get in there, a human comes in. Now, humans are like the dragons. If this was a Dungeons & Dragons, it'd be like a dragon coming in. So we hide. Basically, in Bunny and Burrows, you don't fight, you hide. And I mean, it's clever, but a lot of times your first instinct is, I want to kill it. You have to fight that instinct in Bunnies and Burrows.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see rabbits as menacing, but then again, they do have rather sharp claws.
Well, the thing about Bunnies and Burrows is everything is an enemy. You see a dog, it's an enemy, it's probably going to kill you. It has better stats than you. A snake has better stats than you. A fox has better stats than you. Everything pretty much has better stats except speed. You're faster. So anyways, we're in this this farmhouse. Human comes in. I fail my stealth check, or my hide check, what it is.
Oh my.
So he sees me. Now, it's probably not a big deal. He sees a bunny. This takes place in like a countryside, so you probably see bunnies all the time. He tries to shoo me away, basically. In the process, I knock something over. I believe it was a mop or something. Close the door on me. And again, this is because I failed a roll to try to escape. She was trying to grab me and pick me up. She was very clever, our DM. She had, okay, well, you knock a mop over. I'm like, well, that's not a big deal. She's like, yeah, but it closes the door, and we're stuck, obviously, because bunnies can't open the door. So he starts chasing me around, and I'm having to roll to avoid him grabbing me. Now, there was four of us, so the three other people are kind of figuring out, well, how can they help me? One of my friends, at this point, he had fashioned a rusty nail into a makeshift sword, and he somehow used he was an engineer type character, so he fashioned this rusty nail with a piece of string, became like he wrapped it around his back, so he could actually use this nail between his paws as a stabbing weapon. He wasn't very good at it, but it was something he could stab with. So he's like, all right, well, I'm going to run out and I'm going to try to stab the rusty nail through the guy's shoe. She's like, well, that's not okay. I mean, what's she going to say? No, you can't do that. I mean, so he does it, and she's expecting, obviously, this to fail. I'm not even sure what challenge she put level, what number he needed to beat, but he crit. So basically, he rolled 3 1s. So she can't say you missed. So she's like, fine, you stab him in the foot, he screams in pain, and he kind of goes up on one leg, grabbing at his foot, which has a nail on it. I go, he's on 1 foot. And she goes, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to charge the backside of his knee on the leg that's still standing. She's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, this is going to happen. So I roll the 3 die. What do I get? I get a 4. 1, 1, and a 2. Basically another crit. She can't say that it didn't work. So she's like, fine, you knock him down, and he goes face first onto the ground, and he's screaming in pain. At this point, she just wants us out of this barn. So she's like, the wind comes and opens the door. Me and my friend look at each other like, no, this is going to happen. This is a thing now. So my friend jumps up on the guy's back, the back of his head. And keep in mind, we're bunnies. We're not house bunnies. We're good-sized bunnies. He jumps up on his head, and he starts biting at his ear.
Not in an affectionate manner.
Not in a cute, I'm going to bite you because I love you kind of bites. It was biting to do damage. He starts biting at his ear. Again, not doing damage enough to actually kill a human, but still doing damage. He rolls over trying to get my friend off, the other bunny off, throws the other bunny across the room, does significant damage to him. At this point, I rage out because my character is a protector of bunnies. He's like Doctor Who of bunnies. No one dies today.
So your bunny got hopping mad?
Exactly. So he finally... I have claws, so I figure, well, I'm going to try to cut his throat. Because he had to turn over, so now he's on his back. She goes, you can't be serious. I go, I'm dead serious. I'm rolling right now. I roll 3 1s.
Oh, my.
She's like, you just cut his throat. I'm like, great, what happened? She's like, well, now there's a rule in RPGs called the chunky salsa rule. Basically, it means that if something happens to a character that would reduce his head to the consistency of chunky salsa, he's dead. Doesn't matter what the rules are. So, not to say that I crushed his head, but I cut his throat. So, he starts bleeding out. And he dies. She basically, at this point, he had no health left. He was just completely dead.
So, could one say that he bought the farm?
So here we are, 4 cute, cuddly bunnies having an adventure, trying to save other bunnies. Middle of her campaign, we just killed a human. I'm pretty sure it's never happened before in a campaign of Bunnies and Burrows. And unfortunately, we've never played it since.
I wonder why. Well, we hope to do more of these episodes every now and again, just discussing and reminiscing about old times that we've had.
Because we have quite a lot. This has been another episode of Perception Check with Eric and Ken. Join us next time where we discuss player etiquette around the table.
Red boys, this is Red Leader.
Rendezvous at Mark 6.1. This is Red 2, flying push. Red 3 standing by. There's a lot of fire coming from the right side of that deflection tower.
I'm on it.
And now, it's time for Word of the Day.
Okay, that's right, Elise. Now we're on to our next section, which is Word of the Day. And today we're going to be talking about something that probably everyone should really know. It's mechanisms. Now, if you've listened to our show, this is or any podcast, one of the biggest terms that someone could say, or one of the things you hear over and over again, is mechanism. It's pretty important.
Yes.
So let me give you the definition of what I downloaded from BGG. It's part of a game's rule system that covers one general or one specific aspect of the game. Examples are like dice rolling or area control for King of Tokyo, rolling dice, trading, light building in Settlers of Catan. Those are what would be considered mechanisms. And so there's not a lot to say in this Word of the Day. I was searching for a good Word of the Day, and we've covered quite a bit, but I thought it would be kind of interesting for us to talk about mechanisms. Maybe we could say, what is your favorite mechanism, but that would be a whole topic in itself.
I would think so.
Yeah. So basically, whenever you guys hear mechanisms, if you don't know what it is, and most of you probably have, basically a mechanism is just like we said. It's dice rolling, area control, like Risk. Risk is like a mechanism, like an area control game. What would be the main mechanism? X-Wing, because we're talking about X-Wing today.
X-Wings, well, obviously dice rolling is a huge mechanism.
Part of it.
The whole combat and defense system is
right.
The dice rolling. As far as, I don't know, how would you describe as a mechanism, describe the movement system? Because it's a unique miniatures game. You're using templates, I suppose.
Right.
Could we call it a template movement mechanism?
I guess you could call it that.
Any of these games that we'll be talking about, many of the games we're going to talk about later have a very similar mechanism using either cardboard templates or cards that you're laying down in front of the miniature and moving the miniature.
Right.
So I think that might be that's a
mechanism.
Yeah.
I've got a problem here. Check. I can hold it. Pull on. No, I'm all right. Red 5. I'm going in. Big wedge. Let's close it up. We're going in full throttle. That ought to keep those spiders off our back. Right with you, boss.
Luke, at that speed, will you be able to pull out in time?
It's just like Beggar's Canyon back home.
And now it's time for our main topic.
That's right, Elise. Now we're on to our main topic. Now today we are going to be talking about X-Wing. And, I suggested to Stephen here that we talk about X-Wing because that's one of your favorite games, number one, right?
Yes.
And number two, we both have it.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, I just played this for the first time at the game store.
Yep.
And the game store was so nice. They got out this really beautiful map of the universe. It was on a mouse pad.
Yeah.
It has that foam on one side, like a rubber foam kind of deal.
Yeah, I've heard it described as like wetsuit material.
Okay.
It feels the same
Sure.
as like a mouse pad or a wetsuit or something like that.
So they got that out, and it made it a little bit more flavorful of the game.
It had a beautiful print out of stars and nebulae, beautiful bright colors on the nebula. Mm-hmm. It really did add that backdrop to the space theme that we were fighting in.
Right. And so we thought it would be great for us to talk about this. And one of the reasons why I think it would be a good idea, because I think Fantasy Flight's X-Wing is starting to gain some speed. I think that its initial release was pretty big. Everyone's like, whoa, what's this? And everyone's excited. You see a lot of these game reviewers on YouTube and whatever talk about it, and they're like, whoa, this is a great game. There's places you can go on YouTube and get tips, right? So what is great about this game is it's quick, it's light. Everyone knows Star Wars. We had talked about it in an earlier episode.
Yep,
the
our Space Games episode.
Right, the Space Game. And I thought we could delve into it a little bit more because it's becoming more and more popular. And the fourth wave, I believe, is coming out here pretty quick.
Yeah, Wave 4 is coming out, and they're introducing huge ships.
And for those of you who don't know X-Wing, the Wave 4, what we're talking about is it's new ships, basically.
Yes.
Not new roles or new expansions necessarily. I guess the expansions would be the actual ships themselves.
Yeah, they refer to them as expansions.
Right. So, okay, before we get all into this, excited and talking about this, let's go over some details of the game, and then we'll delve into it some more.
Yep.
First of all, the game, obviously, we said is made by Fantasy Flight. Designers are James Kiffin, and hopefully I won't screw up these names, Corey Konitsa, Jason Little, Bradley Sadler, Adam Sadler. It's best with 2 or 4 players. It takes about 30 minutes. It's... What's that?
Maybe.
It depends, okay?
Yeah.
But we'll get into that in a bit. It's a miniatures game, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dogfighting game, airplanes or space game, whatever. It has dice rolling. It has a little bit of a crib sheet there. It has movement programming. I guess that was what we were talking about in our word of the day.
Yeah.
One of the mechanisms was movement programming.
Yeah.
I think that's becoming more and more of a popular thing these days. Collectible components like miniatures, I really enjoy that part of it. Got a lot of different ships of the Star Wars universe. 2012, let's go over some of the awards it has gotten. 2012, the Charles S. Roberts Best Sci-Fi Board Game. It got the Meeple's Choice nominee of 2012. As Dior, N nominee. I'm not French.
I'm not going to be able to pronounce French either.
That's 2013. Gildbreken Arts Volksspiel. That's German, I believe.
Volksspiel?
Yeah, that's 2013. 2013 Dice Tower Game of the Year. But let's delve a little bit into this. What makes this game so entertaining? And I'm going to throw that ball into your court, Stephen. For you, what makes it so entertaining for you?
For me, and I think most other players of this game, is that it really does give you that excitement of the movies when we have the space scene at the end of the original Star Wars.
Right.
They're attacking the Death Star and
Right.
trying to fire the torpedo
they're
down
in the trench. Yeah.
They're getting chased by the TIE fighters, or in Return of the Jedi, which is my favorite movie, we really get the first real fleet battle in Star Wars, and you've got all the fighters dogfighting between the ships, and you've got the ships shooting back and forth at each other. So I think the game really does capture some excitement of dogfighting with the Star Wars ships. And, so many of those ships are so iconic now.
Yeah.
They're really neat, and a lot of people always have their particular favorites.
Right.
And, I think that's, they're just reaching out and trying to give people their favorites to be able to play with, and that's why we're on Wave 4 already. No, that's what I find most enjoyable, is I really do feel like I'm dogfighting with people.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that we had talked about this in an earlier episode, and one of the things that I had said, and I'll say it again, things that makes this game really popular is what makes the Star Wars movies popular. Everybody knows the characters, but George Lucas has made a world, a complete world, where he's got planets with their own cultures, and it's very realized. Like, this is why a lot of people like Tolkien. When they read Lord of the Rings, when they read The Hobbit, it's a very realized world, from languages to, you name it, right?
Yeah.
That's why Tolkien is so big, is because when you go into that world, when you watch the movies, when you read his books, you really feel like you're entering into a different, unique world. And Star Wars does that. And one of the reasons why this game is so big is because it's taking that lore, I guess you could say, and making it realized. And in some ways, who wouldn't want to be Luke Skywalker in the trench at the end of Episode 4? Who wouldn't want to do that?
Absolutely.
Obviously you don't want to die, but it's like, when I was a kid and I watched that in the theaters for the first time, I was like, yeah, go Luke Skywalker! And I was in there and I was like a little kid and I was so excited, and I dreamed the whole movie for 3 nights straight, and because it made such an impact on me. I think this game gets a little bit of that. That little bit of that little kid in every guy that plays this game. Takes a little bit of that child in all of us.
I think so. And I guess you could say, miniatures are one step away from just being toys, but we're given such a great rule set to use the miniatures. And I think we've talked about, it is collectible. People want to buy these ships because they look so darn good.
Yeah.
They took their 1/270th scale. So of the actual, or what the ships would be if they really existed. Mm-hmm. So they talk about it in the back of the rule book. I don't know if you read the back of the rule book. They talk about the miniatures, that the process, like they actually got to, for most of these, use the film-used models of these ships. So like the shrunk down Millennium Falcon was a copy of what you saw in the films.
Right.
So that's why the details, like almost every detail that could still be there at the scale that they're produced at, is there. Right. And it just looks so great. And the painting is really nice. If for being small and pre-painted, you're definitely not ripped off with purchasing all of these ships. And it's so nice. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, and the price on these are pretty good. I have to say that I would think that having a price point of between $10 and $12 for as small as they are would be a better deal. But if you think about a miniature of that type with that much in it, with paint, and you've got cards of the different pilots that go with that ship that you just bought, so you get more than just a ship. And what is unique about this game is that it is a kind of collectible game. You can do that, which Fantasy Flight is smart to do this. They made a game with such great miniatures that people are collecting them just for that. Not even just for the game necessarily. And that's what kind of got me into it. Not to mention the fact that I wanted to get a couple for when I played a game. Oh yeah, we're going to play this come Thursday night at the game store. Yeah. And so I go, okay, Steven, I got to go out and go get some. So I went out and got someone, and boy, I dipped my toe into that water of the, have all of them. Now my wife is like, oh great, you're into something else now that you have to collect. So it is a bit of a money sink, and that's why I've stayed away from it in the past. But it's just kind of fun.
You're welcome.
No, it's not. Don't say that. It's not you're welcome at all. I'm not happy about that part. But it's just kind of fun. And the last time we played it, it was a pretty good game. And I have to say that the time on that is great. It took us about 30 minutes, really, I think.
I think it took us longer than that. 45 minutes, an hour.
Once we got started, it was about a half hour.
The setup can take, in some cases, if you're playing with a lot of ships, if you don't already know what you want to use, and like when I play with my family or my brother and our friends, we usually kind of build everything on the fly every single time we play. Right. So it can take longer to set up all these ships and meet our squadron point values than it does to actually play the game once we get started. So it's kind of funny in that sense. Right. The playtime can be short. It can be really long. When we played at the game night the one night, it came down to one A-wing against a TIE fighter and a TIE interceptor or something like that.
Yeah, with two TIE interceptors.
And the dodging back and forth, and nobody could roll any hits, and the dice just were not hitting. So, I mean, it's a roll of the dice, how the dice are working that day. When we played a little earlier, preparing for this podcast here, just to familiarize ourselves one more time, get it fresh in the mind. That was one of the things. There were certain times, certain instances where I rolled 5 dice one time and didn't get a single hit on either of the dice, on any of them. Yeah. So, it's just how the dice come up.
Yeah. And I know that some people have a problem with that. They don't like the game because of that. But obviously, every game is going to have some randomness to it, and always dice have a bit of that to it. Now, I would submit that this game needs a little less dice, in my opinion, because like you said, you got a little bit screwed in some of your rolls, and then it changed the game in a sense. That happened to me last time we played it.
Yeah.
That when we were playing at the game store, could not roll, and I got knocked out kind of early, and I had 3 ships, and I was like, wow, this really bites, because I really wanted to be in it, and then I couldn't.
Yeah, that's the downside with the player elimination, is if you're only playing, sometimes we play, each person's only one ship, and if you get knocked out, then you're sitting there the whole time the rest of the game is going. So I guess you could house rule it, if someone gets taken out early, there's another ship gets added in or something, they come back.
Reinforcements.
reinforcements or respawns, certain number of respawns or something. You could create different house rules. At the same time, as far as what you were talking about eliminating some of the randomness of the dice, I wonder if they could have gone with a system of a base value of attack, and then you roll dice to see if you get more than that, or a reduction, or I don't know.
Right, and I agree with you. I think that there needs to be a certain, like you say, a certain base number that you get. And especially if you're like that one time you rolled 5 dice and you got nothing, you should have got some range ruler. Yep. And if you're within that one, you should be hitting of some kind, right? Yeah. However, with that said, I can hear the naysayers. The naysayers will say, oh, well, he just dodged and weaved, Yeah. So you could argue that too. I understand. However, I really believe that there needs to be something there. You should be getting something. Yeah. Now, with that said, it is a great game, I have to say, and I love the fact that it's so short. Now, let me back up here a minute. You said something about the fact that you had family come over, and you spent a lot of time just trying to get the ships up and your pilot and all that. And yes, I agree. That can be a little time consuming, but I would say, from my perspective, I enjoyed that a ton, because I was like, okay, when we played the last time, we was like, okay, we have a certain point amount, and I was going through all my cards, because you can pick your pilot, then you pick your
have like secondary weapons, like
you have missiles,
proton torpedoes,
right? And in case of the X-wing, they've got an R2 unit or a droid, I should say, and then you can add that, and that was, to me, awesome. It gave your pilot and that ship more character.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, just like you would if you're playing any other game where you had a character and they had specific special abilities or whatever. That's when a game sort of gives a little bit extra to that game, is when you have those extra things involved. Now, before we go on, and I know I've been talking a lot here, let's go on. Why don't, Steven, you do me a favor and give our audience just a real general rundown of how to play the game. So we had said that the first thing you do is you say, okay, we're going to you start with a point total. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Okay.
So we start off, you decide on a point total, and these points it's your squadron point value is what it's referred to as in the rule set. Your squadron points can set whatever you want, and every ship is worth a certain amount of points out of that goes into that total, or comes out, I guess, if you're subtracting. So an X-Wing could be 30-something points. I think if you get one of the big named pilots like Wedge Antilles or Luke Skywalker, they're like 38 or 39 points.
Right.
So you can do that, or you can take a really low rookie pilot, and maybe he's 24, 25 points. I'm kind of taking these off the top of my head. I don't recall any point values. But
I think that's about right.
Yeah, I know I'm in the ballpark here.
Right.
So, or the TIE Fighter. The TIE Fighter, the basic TIE Fighter, is, in the lore of Star Wars, meant to be a ship that they just kind of spammed. There's just hundreds of them, and you win by numbers.
Right.
So in this sense, the TIE Fighters, the basic TIE Fighters, can be, if you take the Academy pilot, who has no name, it's just kind of some no-name pilot. So he's only, I think, 12 points.
Right.
So, maybe you get 4 of those to every one rebel ship or something like that. The Millennium Falcon, the Slave One, they're more like 40, almost 50 points, just the ship themselves.
Right.
And then your add-ons, your missiles, are 4 or 5 points. Your droids are 3 or 4 points. Mm-hmm. You can get little mechanic upgrades that attach to the ship, and you can only have one of them on each ship at most, and they're usually 2 to 5 points. So you add up all these points, whatever your combination, and there's limitations on each ship, all indicated by, there's lots of iconography, lots of little images that you match up. So once you pick your ships, that's your ship total. And the general game is whichever team has the lowest point total has the initiative when it comes to movement or combat later in the game.
Right.
And initiative, the other aspect of pilot cards, is you have a pilot skill value, and it goes, I think, 1 to 9 is basic on the ship cards. You move going lowest to highest, and fire going highest to lowest.
Now, what do you mean when you say lowest to highest? So
the lowest ship value, so if your Academy pilot is maybe a 1, I can't remember if it's a 1 or a 2 off the top of my head, but if your TIE Fighter Academy pilot is a 1, he's going to move first. And then the higher values, Wedge Antilles is a 9, tie as you go. Wedge Antilles will move last, but Wedge Antilles will then shoot first in the next phase, which is the combat, or, well, there's movement and activation. You can activate, everybody has these different abilities. Every ship type has the same abilities, and then you can add cards that give you new action abilities, barrel rolls or target locks, so you can use your missiles, things like that.
Why don't you tell them about the movement template?
Okay, yeah, so before the action phase, you have your planning phase starts out every round. Your planning phase, you have a little dial, and you pick your movement. It's got all different arrows, whatever direction you want to go. There's hard turns or soft banked turns that you can go on. Basically, hard turns change your facing 90 degrees. Banked turns change them 45 degrees. And then you can go straight. You can do a loop where you go to the end of the straight and flip around. And then, so you plan your phase, then you move, and you've got these little tiles or cardboard templates. They're referred to as movement templates in the rules. And all it is, it's such an ingenious feature that it just fits right into these little guides on the front of the base of the ship, and then you just move the ship to the other end of the guide, and that's it. That's all the movement.
Right.
So when you compare it to other war games or miniatures games, the more advanced miniatures games, you have a tape measure, and you're measuring everything out. Millimeters count in that instance.
Right.
And in this X-Wing, it's supposed to be a casual game, so it's not that big of a deal. But the templates make everything nice and simple, and it makes the movement phase go by really quick. You have to pick an action before the next person moves.
Right.
So you move, then you do an action. And, yeah, you have to plan ahead and think of where someone's going to go. And if I move here, how are they going to move? Are they going to think I'm going to keep looping around? Or there's a lot of the mind game tacticianing. I just invented a word there.
There you go.
There's a lot of tactician kind of concepts into it. How you're going to move your squad and get other players' ships in your line of fire.
Right, and what you're basically talking about is movement programming.
Yeah.
And that's a mechanism of Star Wars X. Now, one of the things that Fantasy Flight does on most of it's kind of superior when it comes to marketing. They have done a really great job in marketing this game. I believe that this is based off of the Wings of War series. I think that's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty darn sure that they saw the success of that, even though I really don't see a whole lot of people playing that game as much as X-Wing. I think X-Wing has just killed everything else with the amount of people that play X-Wing.
Obviously, the theme jumps out at a lot more people than World War I dogfighting.
Right.
Or there is World War II Wings of Glory is the new name of it.
Right.
So yeah, I forget the name of the Italian company that came out with Wings of War in 2004, I think it was. So it was out for a while. That company went out of business, and Fantasy Flight bought the whole system. So Fantasy Flight was producing the game Wings of War for a while
in America,
and that is why they got this system, and they developed this template system off of the concept of the maneuver cards that are used. It's a card deck with all your maneuver options for every different plane.
And you're talking about Wings of War.
Wings of War, yeah.
Because that's not how it is in X-Wing.
Not in X-Wing. There's not decks of cards. It's just the template.
Let me jump in here. In X-Wing, one of the things that you do when you're programming your move, everyone does it at the same time.
Yep.
And you have a little round. I'm not sure what
they call it. The dial.
A dial. Okay, a movement dial, I think is what it is. And then you dial it in like a hard move or a soft move, and I say soft. There's like an easy move that's like a green arrow, and then there's a tricky move like you do a loop to loop, and that's like a red arrow, and you can only do those once every now and then because your pilot gets, what's that called again?
Stress.
That's right. See, you know it better than me. So my point is that this is, I believe, how Fantasy Flight's X-Wing deals with that issue with programming and no cards. Whereas other games have the cards. For example, we played Sails of Glory.
Yes.
And Sails of Glory has movement cards.
Yeah.
And I believe it's similar in that regard to the Wings of War, right?
It's the same system.
Same system. So, and it has that. And to be quite honest with you, I prefer the way X-Wing has it.
I think so too. The templates are a lot nicer, and the way it guides, they've got the little guides on the bases. It works a lot better.
Right. Now, another game that sort of it's like is Blue Max. Now, this is an older game, and I have this game, and this is what I'm familiar with when it comes to dogfighting. Although I do have the game Ace of Aces.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It has that book, and each person has a book, and there's ingenious with the little drawings on it. So that's my other thought as far as like dogfighting. Oh, it's not really a board game, although X-Wing isn't really a board game either. But Blue Max, I prefer the way you move in a hex system.
Yeah, the hex system.
Right, and so you have a sheet, and it tells you what kind of movements you can do, and then you move on the sheet. So you don't need templates in that game. Yeah. However, you do need a board with hexagons. However, if they wanted to do that with X-Wing, they could have done it with hexes and made the hexes very soft, and then the star system behind it come through. So it's like a little hint of a hexes. I would have enjoyed the game a little bit more if it was like that. However, I'm not saying that the game now is unplayable or not good, because the way it is now, it's plenty good.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you are, and again, it's the Blue Max was not intended as a miniatures game,
right.
And I know it was developed. People started using miniatures with it, and it works well. Miniatures on the hex system. So I'm not sure. I haven't played it enough to really determine the value of one over the other. I think both work in their context, but yeah, the hex system is simpler. Sometimes it was a little more difficult for me to visualize the spacing of the hexes and exactly how I'm turning and things like that, whereas the template kind of manages that for me. I'm either turning 90 degrees or 45 degrees, and you do have to get or kind of judge the position, how far ahead you're going to move, because we have in Star Wars, we have like the asteroids, and if you land on them, you can roll for damage and things like that.
Right,
so,
that is kind of a little clunky, landing on an asteroid. I do find that kind of odd. However, it is in the rules. It's the way it is. Oh well, not a big deal. It's on a game changer is my point.
Yeah, I think, visually, if you're visualizing it, it's more the asteroid was there and you accidentally moved and kind of just barely dodged it and clipped it with part of your ship or something like that. So
now, I know that there's other games out there that are like it. One is Star Trek Attack Wing, and this is sort of a new deal. I believe it's with
WizKids.
WizKids, that's right. I was trying to think of the name. Now, this is a little different in that, of course, it's the Star Trek universe, and they're big capital ships. It's not like little fighters. That's obviously right off the bat, that's different in that regard. Have you played this at all?
I have not had a chance to play Star Trek Attack Wing.
I know that it has some different rules. For example, I know they've got some really big shields, and so it's like they have all of these things that I just think it's just there's more to it. There's like a crew, and
that's what I've heard. Your ship and your captain are two completely separate things, whereas in X-Wing you pick a ship and it gives you the name of a captain, or it just gives you a random name, academy pilot or rookie pilot, things like that.
I think that Star Wars is going to be more successful. Number one, I think more people like Star Wars than Star Trek.
Debatable.
I mean, no, and I'm saying that, and if you look at the figures as far as like people going, I know there's been a new upsurge with the Star Trek with the new reboot of the system, but before that happened, there was a clear excitement with Star Wars over Star Trek. I know, okay, that's number one. Number two, I think that the complexities in Star Trek with the crew and all the different shields, Star Wars is kind of basic.
Yeah.
You break out your ship, you got a pilot, maybe a droid in there, maybe some torpedoes, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's very simple. That is why you're going to find there's going to be more people interested in X-Wing, the game, okay, than are going to be interested in Star Trek.
What I've heard is that these do not feel the same. A few people had initially gone to the conclusion that Star Trek must just be big ships moving like little ships using the same movement system. I've heard that that's not the case. It's basically the same saying Wings of War, because it uses the maneuver deck system that they then adapted to Sails of Glory. It's like saying that the Napoleonic ships that you're sailing with feel exactly like World War I airplanes dogfighting. And I think part of it's in the mind of the player, how they're visualizing, what they're visualizing.
Right.
my initial impression, I thought it was meant to be like one-on-one ships in Star Trek versus the squadrons in X-Wing. And I've been told that's not true. You know, that people generally play with 2, 3, 4 ships per side. There's so much more variety because you can put Captain Kirk in a Romulan warbird, or you can put Khan in Klingon battlecruiser or something like that. So, and then you've got all the different tech and, you know, different crew members that give you different bonuses. So I don't know a lot about the inner workings of the game, but I've heard that it's definitely not the same as X-Wing.
Okay. Well, I know that we had played, to get paired for this show, we played Sails of Glory. Now let's talk about it briefly.
Okay.
Because I think it sort of relates to X-Wing. Sails of Glory, as far as the production value, is off the charts. I think it's even better than X-Wing, although that's pushing it, okay? Because X-Wing is so good. Fantasy Flight is always great with their art and just the cards. And they didn't go and take pictures of the actors. Fantasy Flight, when they go and do this kind of thing, they actually go and repaint the characters in the movies. So it's amazing how this works, right? But Sails of Glory, all the boards, the player boards, and it looks like all the illustration looks like a woodcut. And from the late 1800s, that was common in newspapers. If you open up a newspaper, you see illustrations from the late 1700s. That's how the illustrations were.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't paintings, they were woodcuts.
Yep.
And just little details like that, it just blew me away. The ships are gorgeous. And how you're sailing. It's a sail game, basically, with fighting.
Oh, yeah.
And that part just blew me away, and it's fun as hell in that regard. I so often wanted to, like, I guess you call it tack around, just so I could get in position, because you can't, it's not like Star Wars, although Star Wars has a little bit of that being in position, too.
Yeah.
But this is even more important. And it's hard to get in position, because in X-Wing you can maneuver around to get in position. It's harder to do in this game. And there's so many times where I got into something where I was like, okay, I'm going to circle around, and then I was in a bad spot with the wind wasn't hitting me, and then it was dead in the water almost.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think Sails of Glory, if you're into history, if you're into something that gives you a rich game with history and artwork and everything supporting each other, I think Sails of Glory works really great. It is not X-Wing by any means. It is similar.
I can agree.
One of my downfalls, or one of the things I don't like about the game, is it's a little pricey.
Yeah.
And lots of pieces. You thought X-Wing had a lot of pieces. This has even more pieces.
Yeah, lots of little chits.
Right, and I don't mean to be saying anything bad about Sails of Glory. Great game. If you like history and you like ships and you think you might like X-Wing, you need to think about Sails of Glory. It's really great. Although, again, it's really hard to compare X-Wing and Sails of Glory. They're very different.
Dogfighting in the Star Wars universe is a far cry from sailing a big lumbering ship in the Napoleonic Age of Sail. And I think one of the things that does jump out is the ships do sail differently. There's different rates. So we played a game with just one-on-one frigates. There were about 30 guns as these frigates at the time. Mm-hmm. They just came out with Wave 2, or Wave 2 is going to be soon coming out. By the end of the month, they're going to be shipping to retailers Wave 2, and Wave 2 has big first-rate ships of the line. Now, these are the 100 guns. This is the HMS Victory and things like this. The Bellerophon, the Bellerophon was a 74. That's in the new one. The Bellerophon, by the way, was the ship that Napoleon surrendered on at the end of both wars.
Right.
But so they're going to have first rates. The Victory is actually going to be a special edition ship that comes out later in the year with even better quality production, is what they claim.
Right.
That, and then they're going to have the USS Constitution, which was one of the first American frigates from the War of 1812 era.
That's a cool ship.
Yeah, it's going to be great. They've got some really neat ships that are coming out in Wave 2. Wave 1 is great. There's 12 ships, 6 ships of the line, 74 gun third rates, and then 6 frigates.
So let's sum this up by saying this: X-Wing, great game.
Absolutely,
we've said it multiple times. X-Wing, why it's good. is a number of reasons. Let's go over that really quick. X-Wing, great pieces. They're collectibles, man. These things are first rate. I even saw someone on YouTube blinging out their X-Wing, and I'm sitting there scratching my head saying, why? The paint jobs are so good. I'm just blown away by how they can get that kind of consistency through each ship. It's just amazing to me, right? That they did this. It's consistently beautiful. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, it has a pretty simplified battle system. It's quick. If you've got 2 people, it rocks the house. If you've got more than 2 people, I'm a little bit hesitant to play with more than 2 people. Maybe 3, maybe 4. 5, 6, 8, way too much. We played at the game store. We played.
There were 5 of us, 2 on 3.
Okay. Well, I thought there was going to be 6. There was going to be 6 there for a while, and I'm glad we didn't, because it took forever with just 5 people. So really, the sweet spot on this game is 2, because you can really go in. And I would even suggest, if you ever play this game, that you have multiple ships, because if you get one blown up, you're not out because it's player elimination. So have multiple ones. But why this game works, and we said it at the beginning of this podcast, why it works is because of the history of the movies, the culture, the universe that the Star Wars is set in. It's just rich. And it's fun. It's like being a kid, just like we said.
Yep.
It's like being a kid and having those little toys. Although they're not toys, but don't give it to your 2-year-old. He'll break them for sure. But with that said, amazing game. And it's not in my top 5, but it is definitely a strong game.
It is a very strong game. And there's great things coming out, so give it a look when you have time, because they've got some really, really, really interesting ships coming out in Wave 4, and everything else out so far is great as well.
I would suggest that you go out and just try it. Even if you're hesitant to get involved, like I was hesitant because of all that you had to buy, I would just try it. Go out and try it, see if you like it. More than likely, you're going to have a good time. And that is our main topic.
Oh, I get it. You want to be entertained some more, do you? Okay, well, let's just see what we can do here. Let's go with an off-topic.
That's right. We are now on to our off-topic. And today, I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about Cult of the New. Now, we're not going to get too into this. We've taken a lot of time with X-Wing and gave it its due, because it needed its due. But let's really quick. Now, this is a term we should have put in the word of the day. But let's jump into it really quick. What do you know about Cult of the New? When you hear this, what do you think of it?
Well, I'm assuming that they're talking about how much popularity new things gain, and then the popularity that drops off of things that are not so new. Am I correct in that? Is that what we're talking about? When new things come out, people flock to it.
Right.
And then kind of drop off what's existed previously.
Right.
Not all the time. We're not, it's not universal, but there is reason to believe that a lot of brand new games coming out are taking away or distracting newcomers from the old and drawing more attention away from the old.
Let me say that this phenomena, it frustrates the hell out of me, because I'm all for a good new game. I'm all for that, or a good new product. Whatever that thing is that you're interested in, I'm all for it. But just like the Johnny-come-latelys on the radio, I am generally not interested. This year, I'd be hard-pressed to come up with 3 games that are really awesome that came out in 2014. Now, I know that is sort of a little bit, maybe I should be saying that because Gen Con hasn't got here, and most game manufacturers will come out with their great games for Gen Con or these other summertime game conventions when these game makers release. But I've heard zero in Gamma Trade Show that has come out at Las Vegas. Zero has come out about anything new. So what have I been seeing on all these game reviewers? Old games. They've been going back to old games, reviewing things, and said, wow, there's some really great games out there. Well, yeah, it's like there's some awesome games out there that you guys should be playing already. So what have I been hearing? I've been hearing all these people on other podcasts and other shows talking about older games. And this frustrates me all the time, because it's like they get all excited. And it's like, oh my gosh, a new one. Well, let me just say this. The other side of that coin is, I can see how we played the crap out of a game and now they want some new experience. Because games aren't just about winning. It's about
You're trying to have a good time.
We're having a good time. We're having friends. But it's about getting a new experience out of a new game.
Yeah.
Right? With a theme and whatever. Because, like, Arkham Horror, you don't really hear it talked, although it was killed by Eldritch Horror.
the simpler game, making something so much simpler and less time consuming, is hitting a big popular game like that in the Achilles heel, really.
Oh yeah, but I would say that is one case that the Cult of the New worked great. It came out, everyone was excited about it, and it hit a home run. What I'm talking about specifically is the phenomena of what is new is great, is awesome.
Yeah.
And what I think doesn't help this is when you look at places like Kickstarter. Kickstarter has a tendency to get people all excited, all hyped up, and I will, I shouldn't say never buy a game on Kickstarter, but I'm very hesitant to buy anything on Kickstarter because their testing is so bad that it's very rare that a game is good when it's been properly tested, I should say.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to bring up Kickstarter as well because so many people get so hyped about these games and they fork out all this money and they've never even seen anything about it. They're shown the good on these websites, and there have been situations where people have almost been scammed out of their money or have been scammed out of their money because they get excited, they fork over all this money, and now suddenly the guy that was running the Kickstarter, used the money to buy a new house or move across country or this or that. It's hello.
Or he follows through with his promises and sends you the game and it's a pile of crap. And that, I think, is even more important to talk about in that this phenomena that everyone calls Cult of the New. I would suggest that unless there's multiple sources that are saying this is an awesome game, hell, there are even great games out there that I've played that I was like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want to touch it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just don't get it, right? Like Agricola. Great game. Everyone likes it. I just don't care for it. I'm not arguing that it's not a good game. It's just not for me. And therefore, that's why you should always, I always say this to friends, you should always try a game as much as you can, if possible. If you don't live around friends that have a big game library, I mean, we're fortunate to have, I think, a good half dozen people I know that have pretty extensive game libraries. And if I really want to play a game and they had it, I could go and borrow it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're not around there, if you're in a very rural area or you're in another country that doesn't have that, you can always go online and get a game renting place like a Netflix. And the name is escaping me right now. But
Gamefly.
Is it
the
Gamefly?
Video games?
No, it's not video games. It's 4 board games.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Oh yeah, and I was even sort of interested in doing this myself, but I have so many people that I know nowadays, like Donna and Chad and Eric. They have all these games. I could potentially rent games from them for free, really. But if you don't have that, I guess my point is, don't get caught up in the hype of Cult of the New, folks. You need to be careful what you're buying. In fact, I think we've talked about this in a few episodes in the past.
Yeah.
That just to be careful what you buy. I can't tell you how many stuff when I go over to a friend's house and stuff is just sitting on the shelves. They bought it and they thought it was going to be great. Like a movie. They thought it was going to be great. They go out and buy it and then they see it once and it sits on their shelves. So this Cult of the New, I'm kind of hesitant to be involved with at all.
Yeah, I know I have to bring up something. I did find something interesting doing a little bit of research. I found a gentleman's blog.
Okay.
And I have to cite it because I don't want to steal any information here. BoardGameForge.wordpress.com is this guy's blog. It was a post back in September of 2012, so it's a little old, and there hasn't been a lot of activity on the blog since. The last one was in October of 2013. I guess 13, maybe early 2013.
Okay.
Anyhow, he hasn't done a lot, but this Cult of the New topic was on his blog that he went through and he looked at the top 250 games on BoardGameGeek.com and took this information by both popularity, so how many people have liked it, I guess, and then rank, so the overall rank of the game. And out of the top 250 games, by far, they were all within the couple years before 2012.
Okay.
Now, obviously, games in 2012 had dropped off because, well, they've only been out for a few months or whatever.
Right.
So, it'd be interesting to go back and look at that data now, 2 years later, and see what it still looked like. But 2009 was the peak for these games, both in popularity and rank.
Right.
So, new was definitely outweighing the old, but I guess that would be, there's been such a surge within the past few years of board gaming coming back to popularity.
Right.
So I wonder if it's tapered off, if it's leveled out or anything by now. So
let's play devil's advocate, okay? Let's just, for the sake of argument, I guess you could say, what is good about this? It keeps our industry afloat.
Absolutely.
Because let's say a game isn't all that great. People go out and buy it. Is not only either getting a game company started through Kickstarter, or it's helping a company stay afloat, let's say.
Yeah.
So places like Kickstarter can be a very good thing. It fuels new, better games. Just like when you hear the argument from the drug companies that in order for them to charge a lot of money for existing drugs that's already been out on the market for quite some time, that money is rolled over into more research into better drugs. I mean, you could argue the other side of that coin for sure, that they're just milking their clientele.
It's possible.
But that's my point. My point is that what the drug company's argument could be potentially the argument for the game industry. That it is making new games, better games, and it's making this hobby flourish. You could also argue that the last 2 to 3 years, 2011, 2012, 2013, has been amazing years for games. I'm not sure that 2014 can keep up with the previous years. We'll see. We'll see, right? As soon as we hit, next February, next time of this year, we'll know how good 2014 was.
No, I agree. I think it's a benefit in that sense. It is terrible, obviously. People who have been avid board game fans for years will always try and put people onto some of their favorite old games. I'm sure that's always going to persist. Just like we still there are classic movies out there that people have, you have to go see that movie because it's a very big, important film in many ways.
And you could argue some of these older games, sometimes they'll get a reboot or they'll do a reskin of it, like that Risk, what is it, Legend?
Legacy?
Legacy,
Wasn't it
thank
Legacy?
you.
Yeah.
Legacy, I couldn't think of it off the top of my head. That, they reskinned it, and now it's like an amazing game. Everyone's like, oh my god, have you played this game? It's supposed to be really awesome.
That's what I've heard. I heard from someone say that he absolutely abhors Risk. It's the worst game in his opinion, but Risk Legacy is not Risk, is what he says. He loves Risk Legacy.
Right. And you could also argue that a lot of these games that have been produced that were bad are bad, or I shouldn't say bad. They were good, but now they're not as good, or they're not looked at anymore because other games killed it. Well, that, in some instances, could be argued that's a good thing. Yeah. Because if our industry is, the evolution is coming to, like, these greater, bigger things, right? These hybrid games, like we've talked about it in past episodes, where games are, in my perception, becoming hybrids. Every game that you see right now in the top 10 or 20 in BGG.com or whoever's list is there, is not a pure game if it was back in the 70s or 80s. It's a hybrid of different mechanics, themes, whatever, and they put it together in a way that makes it a spirit game. Plus, they refine some, different mechanisms and this sort of thing. So you could argue that too. So with that, I would say I want to end it here. And with that positive note, I guess you could say, and that's my thing. Cult of the New, it annoys me. It flat out annoys me because I'm always suspicious of the latest and greatest kind of thing, right? But there are some really positives to this topic. That the industry is evolving into something better. Yeah. It is coming into interesting things. I mean, every time something else comes out new, like Steam Park came out recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a really interesting idea. and that is a direct result of games that have come before it, right? That dice rolling and, three-dimensional pieces and all that. It's just, that is the natural evolution. And it's an interesting thing to talk about, really.
Yes.
So with that, we're going to leave you today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you, Stephen, for coming by.
You're awesome, Rob. Thank you.
Well, I don't know about that part, but we'll be back, hopefully, and hopefully you guys are entertained. Have a super day or super night wherever you are. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining the Huff-N-Stuff podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening and hope you can tune in next time. Huff-N-Stuff is brought to you by Southwestern Valley Gaming Group at swvalleyggaminggroup.webs.com. You can visit us on our webpage at huffnstuffpodcast.webs.com. That is HUFFNSTUFF podcast.webs.com. We love to hear from you, so leave us questions, feedback, or just say hi. As always, keep on smiling and game on.